Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 425th episode of Constructed Criticism. I'm your host, Mason, and I'm joined by my co-host, Abe, this week. And Abe, what is your favorite anime that you've seen recently?
My favorite anime that I've seen recently, it's actually, I believe the season finale is this Saturday. It's Aoashi, which is a sports anime about a soccer player who's just some kid from the middle of nowhere, like rural Japan, and then he wants to go pro at soccer and kind of starts his hero's journey there. It's been a really, really interesting ride. It's gone lots of different places, and I'm really, really excited to see how the season ends, and hope, fingers crossed, we get a season 2 out of that one. I love my sports animes, but the worst part about them is they very rarely get renewed.
So. Yeah, great show. I love that one. I've been watching it recently. Our other co-host, Spencer, is going to be out for this week. He has got some stuff going on in his life, so we couldn't have him here today. But don't worry, we do have a special guest joining us for this episode. We have Will Krueger, better known probably as X-Whale, coming on, talking about improving in Magic and his kind of journey and everything in between. We're going to have that in the middle of the show. But first, we do need to do Always Improving, because that is the main point of the show. And Abe, speaking of being out, you've been on vacay for the last couple of weeks, so I think it's your turn to go first. What was your Always Improving moment for this little bit?
Yeah, so I've been on a 2-week vacay to visit my girlfriend and just take some time away from Magic, away from a lot of things with work and stuff, and it was really nice. And I spent a lot of that time really able to reflect on a lot of the change that's gone on in my life, especially since the pandemic and mostly since 2019. A lot of my involvement with Magic has changed. Having this job has changed a lot of things. Having a long distance relationship like that has changed a lot of things. And something that kind of had started to make me feel a bit uncomfortable was the fact that I have not really had a lot of opportunity with all of these things going on in my, much more important personal life to play as much Magic as I used to and play as many RCQs or even Magic Online RCQs or really stay as plugged in to competing as I thought I might with the announcement coming. But really taking the time to take a step back, evaluate what I have in my life, what I have going on for me, what I have going on in Magic still, the fact that I still, when I do play, I feel like I'm competing at still a really high level and succeeding in the events that I'm playing in. I've only played 3 RCQs, but I've had very good shots in all of them to qualify, and I felt extremely good about that. And so when I left for vacation, I really had this feeling of discomfort about where I was with Magic that I kind of unraveled over the weeks I was gone. But after coming back, I really come back with a refreshed and new feeling of this is just a change in my lifestyle. And I do want to be able to make sure Magic is still a priority where I'm able to compete for future seasons. It just hasn't been what's been in the cards for me right now. And I feel very comfortable in a way that I didn't before, earlier this month, about where I'm at with Magic and my skill and everything. And so that's been a really, really important improving moment for me, is just allowing myself, especially as I go through a change that isn't one that I've had to go through as far as my involvement with Magic in a very long time. I was playing the SCG circuit every PPTQ. I was really grinding for, the better part of 4 or 5 years. And so to see all of that change as kind of the new landscape of competitive Magic is forming and how my life has changed since then, being able to level with that has been a huge game changer for me and how comfortable I feel with allocating the time I need to.
Yeah, it's big to have that balance, and also not only balance, but also the shock from changing, right? It's kind of when you've done a bunch of if you go to if you're someone like my dad who plays tennis every morning, the days where he doesn't play tennis for 2 days in a row, he feels weird and it's jarring, this a routine nature, and it can be really hard and it can be just kind of difficult sometimes to switch away from that, especially when it's been so much of your identity a lot during your your formative years, right? You start if correct me if I'm wrong here, but kind of 19 to 24, you're doing this all the time or whatever. Those are really big formative years, so the switch has got to be jarring. And I'm really happy that things are kind of working out. You're kind of at peace and doing well with that sort of switch.
Yeah, it's definitely been weird. It's a weird part of life to live. So, but I feel good about where I'm at with it, and it's kind of been affirming to feel I know I've been busy with all these other things that are very important in my life that aren't Magic, and Magic's taking a backseat to those. but like it's affirming to my love of competing in Magic, where I'm like, but I still want to do it. You know, I'm okay with where I'm at with it, and I'm really cherishing and treasuring the times I get to, and I still want to be really good, which is something that I think if you asked me 2 or 3 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know, like I really just want to be all in on this no matter what it costs. It's like now I'm like, I'm very comfortable with where I am and being as in on it as I am, being able to do things like this show and keeping up with it in that way, playing the events that I can play, balancing my life with Magic in it is like, you know, this kind of new way of looking at it that I think is going to really help me be able to succeed. So
it's awesome. Glad to hear that for everybody. My always improving moment comes from this past weekend where I played a team 10K RCQ up in Kentucky, and the goal of the event was I teamed with 2 of my good friends, Jesse and Zoe was not qualified for Atlanta, and so the mission was get Zoe to Atlanta. We can only do that if we win. That's what we've got to do. And personally, with team tournaments, there's a lot of like anxiety. So I like struggle with anxiety just in the day-to-day life pretty heavily. And I've gotten a lot better since I was younger. But when I was younger, it was like near debilitatingly when it came to anxiety. It was really bad. And that sort of rears its head at team tournaments where it's like, oh, like I need to do this. I need to make sure I'm not laying my teammates down, blah, blah, and all these sort of things. And with this event, it was a little different where I felt like our chances were like reasonably good. Like I felt like we had like a 9 or 10% chance of success, which I think is like a pretty high percentage to like win a Magic tournament, especially like a 10K where like, you know, people are going to come to game or whatever. I felt confident as a team, but also like I was able to be like, no, like I am here to play the best I can, just do the best I can. And like my friends are not going to care. Zoe's not going to care. Like all I can do is just do my best and that'll be fine. And like let the anxiety kind of melt away. And, you know, we ended up winning that tournament and getting Zoe to Atlanta. And that was a really big, like, kind of helpful improvement where I was like, oh, like, I don't need to worry about this. This isn't a huge problem. And often for me, really, it's the leading up to the event and into the first round. And then after that, I normally feel good. But, like, basically from Friday to when the event started, I was fine. And normally that's, like, a really big, like, non-stomach, really kind of having a lot of anxiety about it. So that was kind of a huge thing and really, like, had me in high spirits and, you know, kind of was able to, like, parlay the next day and actually, like, concede in the finals of the 5K the next day to another friend to help them get to the RC. So that was a kind of just like a sick, like euphoric high weekend where it's like got to win a 10K, help a friend get to the RC, make it to the finals of a 5K, help another friend get to the RC. And like, you know, like it was just awesome. I know. So it was a really like awesome weekend. Not even to mention, you know, get to like back-to-back something like that, which is really cool.
So yeah. You just get to like decide who gets to go to every regional championship that happens in the South. Like every event, you got to go through Mason. He's got to say yes or no.
Yeah, I'm out here blocking him a line then. You know, yeah, I guess that's how it's working around here now. You know, it is funny that I qualified for the RC. Like, honestly, Caleb's a friend or whatever, but the matchup was really good and I was on the play as Mono Green versus Greasefang. So I feel like I could have queued 3 times for the RC, which is kind of crazy because I also did I did it 2 10Ks and a 5K. Like my RCs were all very hard. but yeah, I don't know. It got very lucky. But yeah, it was cool to have that sort of like to get over that hump or whatever. And hopefully going forward, that will not be a thing I have to deal with again. So
yeah, you know, it's really funny you talk about the about like having anxiety about tournaments and stuff, because I always know you as a competitor as like the, oh yeah, match 3, game 3 of the team event. Oh, put it all on me.
That I love. That I unironically love. Like when all the chips are on me, which it actually were for this last event. And in the semifinals, it came down to me. And I'm playing against Esper Control. I'm up a game. Everyone in the hall is watching me. Everyone's gathered around. All the judges are watching. I live for it. I love it. But, you know, going into it beforehand, it's like, ooh, no, it's scary. But, you know, if every match could come down to me in a tournament, in team tournament, I'd love it. That's how I want it.
I've been watching a lot of, I don't know if you know that Sakurai has a YouTube channel about, like, video game development now. And so he did this one, which just, like, talk about, like, the fundamentals of games. I think it's, like, pretty interesting to watch. And it was, like, applying stress and then allowing the player to relieve that stress, like, that is what a game is really about. And so, you know, the anxiety, whatever, that's just stress that you're generating internally. But the external stress, I know that you handle really well. So I didn't even know that really that much about you, that you get that anxious about most of the events you play on like the Friday night. the Saturday morning while you're walking to the hall or whatever.
Oh yeah. If you'll notice, I always have to go to the bathroom or whatever. Like on the even like single events, it will still sometimes catch me, or I get like anxious until about round 1 ends to round 2.
Yeah, until you shuffled up and played and had that weighted blanket of tournament pressure.
Exactly.
Really calm you down.
Then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm the best to ever do it. Woohoo! And then move on. And so that's kind of what it's like. As for housekeeping, so last week we mentioned we were going to announce the date for the CC Standard event for patrons, much like we had our Pioneer one about a month ago now. Unfortunately, due to just everything going on in life and some things, we weren't able to have that meeting, so we haven't had time to sit down and look at the schedule. So we're just going to tell you that when we have the time. I'm not going to tell you like, hey, we're going to hopefully have it sooner than later. Ideally, we'll know in the next 2 or 3 weeks, but just everything going on right now, life's really crazy for everyone, and there's just a lot of stuff going on. It's just hard to even get the podcast out, to be honest. So that's going to come what's going to come. I'm sorry, patrons. Hopefully understand. We'll try to give you ample time so that you're able to do that sort of thing. If that's something you want to do. And speaking of having ample time, Abe, you're going to want to make sure to check out GG Lehigh and have ample time to check out their huge inventory of cards and see everything they have and want to be able to buy from them. You can check out the code link in the description and also on the Discord. If you're a patron, you have your special discount code there. So that's really exciting. And you know what else is really exciting, Abe? We've got a special guest, the NRG MVP, the current Mox champion and friend of ours, Will Krueger, probably better known to a lot of y'all as X-Whale. Will, thank you for coming on the show to talk about improving in Magic today.
Hey, thank you for having me. How's it going?
It's going well. We're really excited to talk to you. A lot of your deck lists and tweets and stuff like that and finishes get brought up with a lot of our listeners. And I think a lot of your story and improving in Magic really resonates with a lot of people as well. But so we can kind of start with that, I think, just in case someone maybe doesn't know you. So how did you start playing Magic?
How does anybody start playing? I was in middle school, and some of my friends started playing, and they were going to the comic store, and then I started going to the comic store, and then I started going to tournaments, and then they started kind of going to tournaments, and then they stopped going to tournaments, and then it was me and my Magic friends. You know what I mean? I'm still friends. Like, a lot of those guys are my best friends. We're actually all at a house over the summer. There was 20 of us. It was awesome. But that wasn't for Magic. That was just for other life stuff. But yeah, it was. This is just it's just the same story you hear from everybody, right? Where it's me and my friends did it when we were kids, and then I liked it, and I built relationships through it, and I just kept doing it, and it's a good outlet, and just kept doing it for a long time now, 7-8 years or whatever since. I guess I first played. I was actually elementary school, but we were just obviously children, I guess. But yeah, just normal.
Yeah. So when did you start doing Mitgo and trying to actually compete and improve in Magic? When did that kind of start in your whole journey? Do you have an idea?
The sheet that they put out for the Mox, it said my account was made in 2015, so I would have been 15 or 16 years old or whatever. But I wasn't really I had it for a long time, and I was I just wasn't very good or whatever, which is fine obviously. But it was so I made my account in 2015, and then I don't know, maybe I remember I started playing a lot. It's the biggest thing for me, I wanted to play more, but I wouldn't play as much because I wasn't very good. And I had to keep putting money into Magic Online. And when you're 16 or 17 or 18 years old or whatever, and $10 to enter here, one league or whatever is and you're losing in the leagues or whatever. I mean, leagues, maybe it's cope, but I swear they were harder when I was a kid. I swear, it's actually insane when people just play complete memes or whatever. And it was it's not they were actually super the ringer or whatever, but I don't know. It doesn't matter. But then at some point I was watching my aunt's dogs and house and plants and stuff while they were on vacation, and I just had a bunch of time because I was kind of stuck at their house, and my friends were across town and stuff, so I didn't really have much to do, and I just had my laptop. I was well, I'll play some Magic Online, and I just won a bunch with Dredge, and a bunch of, a bunch with Dredge. At some point in 2019, I feel like I played Hogak Dredge, maybe. I played something with Faithless Looting, and I don't think I played literal Hogak. I think I played Dredge with Stitcher Supplier or something. I don't know, but something like that. And I was winning a bunch, and I had a bunch of tickets and stuff. I guess before that, I won a couple challenges when I was 17, and I won a Pauper one, and then I won a Modern one 2 months later. And I was dope, this is Magic Online is so easy, and I just blew my bankroll or whatever. I was just an idiot. and then I sort of then like then I started winning like a lot in like 2019 or whatever, probably.
Mm-hmm.
No, 2018. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, around the Hogakish time, it sounds like, right?
Yeah,
like,
something like that. Yeah, and then it really sort of ramped up over like COVID because I couldn't do anything else, really. Just literally stuck.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So
yeah. So I'm kind of curious, and I think one thing our like the listeners people might be kind of curious is like, how did you start like improving at Magic? Because you kind of mentioned like, oh yeah, I was playing some, and there was probably some like paper Magic stuff happening in there, like you go to SCG, blah blah, stuff like that.
Yeah. I play the ones that come to the Midwest, like Indianapolis and Milwaukee. I'd go to.
But so how did you start to like improve with like, because you predominantly played like Magic Online, right? Like that's kind of like your main way of playing. I think that's how a lot of people know you, and I think how like I remember I first found you was like, oh, this Xwell guy like does really well in moto events all the time, and then like the e-tron stuff. So, but how did you start? Yeah, but
for better, for worse.
I think it was good enough at the time. You weren't as wrong as I think people said you may have been.
No, it was fine. Yeah, it was definitely shit playing. But I guess like the question is like, how did I like start like improving?
Yeah, did you like meet people on Magic Online? Did you like start like how did you kind of go? Because I think like when it's such a solitary process online, it can be a lot harder. I feel like a lot of people they end up learning stuff because they meet someone at a tournament or at an LGS, they become friends, and that person kind of shares knowledge, and then they learn about articles and stuff like that. But I think a lot of things are taught interpersonally and not so much via like articles and things like that.
I don't know. I kind of just played like a lot, like way more than like is health, like, but it was COVID, so like whatever. Like everybody, coped with like being stuck inside. I mean, either by leaving and ignoring like reality and stuff, and just being like, "Oh, it's fake" or whatever, or by just actually staying inside and like, I'm sure plenty of people will cope by like going to the gym or whatever, which is like probably what I should have done. But
amen, brother.
Yeah, but paying for that now, but whatever. Yeah, I just played like a bunch of I just played like Infinite, and especially because like right when COVID started, I won a PTQ or Super PTQ on Moto, and I was like, oh wow, this is like insane, and like, and I thought they like said it was for the first PT when COVID came back, but obviously that's like that hasn't happened yet, and this was years and years ago, several years ago, not years and years, for like 2 years, 2.5 years. But obviously that ended up being for the first set of online player stores or whatever. And I think it went like 8-7 or whatever. But like, like the early success, like kind of just took me getting very lucky. And then, I just played like a year playing like every prelim and like every challenge and stuff. And like, there's definitely like more efficient ways to get better and stuff. But like, I was just in everything because I was a college student during COVID and I had infinite time. So that is probably not the most helpful thing. Like, just sink hundreds of hours in, and then you too can win Magic tournaments or whatever. It's like, okay, well, we do that. But I don't know. Like, I just played a lot, and when you make an error or a mistake or whatever, then you just try not to do it again. I guess I don't know.
Sure. If you could go back and tell the young X-Whale how to like maybe get a little bit better at Magic, like you're not allowed to tell him like go to the gym or invest in GameStop or whatever. But if you could go back and tell yourself, like how to get better at Magic more efficient, like what's something you kind of wish you had done, or or maybe you started doing now that's like a little more helpful.
I would. Well, now I don't play like leagues like at all. Like I never play leagues. I mean, there's some. I don't never play leagues. Like I play them when there's like a new deck or whatever. Or like I played some leagues with the green deck, just because like I wanted to like be able to combo and stuff. I took results like way too seriously. Like I thought you really shouldn't be taking results like that seriously. Like you should have like an actual reason. So that doesn't mean that you're like right or whatever necessarily, but like I don't know. It's just like figuring out like what matters, and like you need to like separate like the noise from like what is like real, I guess. And like it's so hard to do in Magic, but there's so much noise. There's a bunch of people who they make noise, and there's like they say these wrong things about Magic, like and they're super argumentative about it. And then there's also like tournament results that are like, okay, well this is like you need to figure out like why this is maybe representative and like why this is maybe not representative, and you just need to get better at like figuring out that. And it's like it's kind of arbitrary, and I feel like kind of weird like saying like you need to sort of draw the line somewhere, and like but it's like I don't know, you just need to sort of figure out like what this means for your plan or whatever. Like if your goal is to win X tournament, like let's say your goal is to win, like I don't know, let's say your goal is to win Atlanta, right? The regional championship in America in like 2 months or whatever. You probably shouldn't be like, oh, well, Green won the Magic Online Challenge the week before. Like, there's going to be totally different events, I guess, or whatever. Or like, let's say like if you qualify for a showcase on Magic Online by top 8ing one of the showcase challenges, and then you look at like what won the challenge the week before, it doesn't make any sense because there's like completely different tournaments. You just need to figure out. I don't know if this is coherent at all, but like,
no, I think it makes sense.
You just need to figure out what everything. You just need to get a better sense of like what things mean, and not just like, oh well, I won 20 matches in the leagues in a row or whatever. So that means that you should play this at your PTQ or whatever. Like that is just people say like I'm like 18-2 in leagues with this deck. The deck is great or whatever. It's that is noise. Do not listen to that. That is complete noise. But anyway,
I mean, if I can say something, that I've kind of always admired about you, since I kind of came to know you from seeing you come across my Twitter timeline over 2019 when I was playing a ton of SCGs, and especially when I was looking into and keeping up with humans, which was always like my plan B deck for Modern. Because there was definitely a period where you were playing that a good bit. But since getting to know you, especially over the course of the green-white, like, Reclaimer Titan deck, I remember meeting you at the last SCG I went to in Indianapolis before the pandemic started, and you were playing that green-white Titan deck in paper, or maybe you loaned it to someone.
I was playing Inverter. It was Pioneer. I loaned it.
I think you loaned the Modern deck to someone who I was rooming with. And we all asked you, like, is this deck good? Like, what's up with it? And you were like, yeah, I don't know. And you never, even though you were like, yeah, I win a lot with it online. It seems good. You have all of the data points to kind of point yourself towards a direction. You have a lot of evidence in front of you that you're evaluating whenever you make decisions. And from the time I've known you, you make decisions about the decks you play. You never feel too definitive, for better or worse, about where you're at, which I think it allows you to be really objective and make a lot of really, really smart decisions that a lot of other players might not be able to. Like, I know I probably play Hammer way too much.
Yeah, me too, man.
Exactly. But I know that, like, isolated from each other, you would put it down. If we were, like, just both playing every Moto prelim with whatever, trying to win the most, I would keep jamming Hammer and doing whatever it took to win, and you would, like, put it down and go to greener pastures. I'm gonna play
4-color at this Nerd Raves thing because I'm like, all right, well, I wanna win it because, like, I'm kind of there on points. I'm like, I need to just if I just top 8 a couple of the ones over the fall, then I'll probably make it, basically. And so I'm like, all right, I should probably, I would love to play Hammer, but, like, all right, I borrowed 4-color, I'll play 4-color or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that kind of, like, ability to not only admit when you're wrong, but question when you're right, that you spoke about with, kind of divorcing yourself from your results. I think that's, like, a really, really big thing that sets you apart from a lot of other Magic players of similar skill.
Thank you.
And of players who have, been playing for some amount of time or have had similar trajectories, where when you make that step where you're able to be more objective, you're able to clear a lot of the stuff that gets in the way of you improving. So I think that's...
Well, thank you very much. That's kind of you to say. Yeah, I mean, it's mostly just, like, chronic indecisiveness with most aspects of my life. So, good and bad, but...
It comes with its benefits.
Yeah, there's definitely ways to do what you're describing better than the ways that I do it, but it is accidentally helpful, I guess. Sometimes.
Yeah, the person that because I think of you that, and the two people I think of are you and Autumn Burchett, who both do that a bunch, where it's just kind of like, oh, like, I don't know, like, there's all these factors, whatever, despite, like, I think a lot of people, like Abe mentioned, would use this, like, like, this is, like, proof or whatever, it's like, well, I keep winning, how could it not be that case,
I went 20-0 in leagues, dude. How could you play anything else? I beat Mono Black Coffers so many times. Like,
I do. You bring up a great point. Actually, you know what? In the podcast there, if you can beat Coffers, that's all you need to know. No, but one thing you said when you were talking about this, I thought was really interesting, kind of maybe worth talking about, is you mentioned how, like, oh yeah, like, the Modern Challenge was so, like it just something just happened, so I'm going to be playing this, let's say, NRG, or this, the RC in Atlanta. It's not the same. Do you feel that way a lot? Like, do you feel like the challenges and, like, the Mox qualifiers and, like, the paper events, like even NRGs, SCGs, do you feel like they don't connect and impact each other quite as much? Or, like, what are kind of your feelings on that? Because that's something that personally I felt like the Magic Online meta is able to actually adapt to things sometimes, because card availability isn't a huge issue, along with, like, a lot of other factors. Whereas real life, you're always going to see, like, way more burn or like affinity or stuff like that, just because it's a little harder to actually move decks around. So what are your kind of thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, I'm still kind of figuring out like how to get a better gauge, right, for like how it works with paper and stuff. Literally our regional championships haven't happened yet, and I haven't attended any RCQs. I'm pretty sure RCQs are going to be a regional thing, and I've only since COVID I've been to all the NRGs except for one for the weekends. So that's probably like 20 total, or 10 weekends and 20 tournaments, I guess, something like that. 11 and 22, I don't know, but it's like too low of like a sample and stuff. But like for online, you need to like understand like the incentives of like the people playing. So like for the standard challenge on Magic Online, like late in rotation, you're like you always see aggro decks. Like you literally see like these mono green decks with this 4/4 trample haste for 4. Like, and that's like, now it's post rotation. So this is like a few weeks ago, but like you would see people or like Hanada or whatever, like Hanada. Oh, it's like now Hanada won the challenge 3 weeks in a row, and then everybody played it or whatever. And like sometimes the bias towards aggro decks is removed, but people will copy paste like exactly the list that won or exactly what Jabberwocky played or whatever, just because the timing of it is for Americans and Canadians and just the entire Western Hemisphere. It's like 4 p.m. Or whatever Central, and like 5 and 3. So it's like sort of after all of the important tournaments, like the PTQ of that Sunday or the showcase of that Sunday or whatever has happened, and it's like you didn't really like prepare for the standard challenge. You know what I mean? But then like the modern challenge is also just like if I played a modern challenge, I'm probably just going to play Hammer because that's just like what I want to play or whatever. You know what I mean? And that's how most people in the event are operating. Like nobody's really testing for these events, but like for the showcases and stuff, you actually do see people like. You see like testing groups form for showcases because the incentive is there, and so you need to sort of understand like why people like do what they're doing or whatever. And like if your goal is to win a standard challenge, you can do that, and if your goal is to win a PTQ, it's like it's going to end up being different. Like if there's a standard PTQ on Magic Online, I'm sure there'll be standard RCQs on Magic Online. I think the second Pro Tour is going to be standard, so I'm sure that they'll. Literally, there's a standard showcase this weekend. What am I talking about? And I'm sure people are testing for that. And you're going to see, like, I don't know what did well in this standard challenge. I haven't been following the format, but I think it's like a lot of the same deck because people don't test and try to innovate or whatever. But you're going to see people with random tech or whatever that you haven't seen before, and you're going to see a new build of this deck, and you're going to see a deck or two that you've never seen before because people have actually like tried for this showcase challenge. And has there been a standard event for this format that people have like had an incentive to try for?
I don't think anything bigger than a challenge. I think that's probably the biggest thing we've had.
Yeah, the challenges they're cool, but they're like 50 people, and if you win, you get like $400, which is cool. That's nothing to sneeze at, obviously, but it's like you don't have like these like independent groups of people like independently trying to, and like these like top tier players, like high level players, like trying to break it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, so, it's not like testing for a pro tour.
Yeah, a cool like thing. It's like it's very often, and because I've been there, I've been playing the standard challenge after I played a PTQ and then another thing or whatever, and like, oh, it's 4 p.m. and I want to keep playing Magic. I'll just copy paste a standard deck that looks appealing or whatever. You know what I mean? And like that's how a lot of the people, and if 20 people out of the 50 people act like that, that's going to have a huge effect on what the results look like. I guess. So I don't know.
No.
Like just understanding these, to sort of summarize, I guess, like understanding the incentives in the tournaments and like what happens and like why people do what they do or whatever is really important when you're like sort of trying to assess things, which is again like why leagues are their actual noise. Like you don't listen to people who's like, I cannot stress enough, like don't listen. If somebody says that they're 18-2 in leagues or whatever, just do not listen to them. They're just capping out of their mind almost certainly. Leagues, people will just play whatever. Like people play, who cares? It's like a wind down thing because the stakes are so low. You go 3-2 and you make your money back in a chest or whatever. It's like then you 5-0 or whatever, you get like $20 or whatever, 11 chests or whatever. Doesn't matter. But like you need to understand the incentives that are in place and what like. And there's never going to be like one tournament that's like this tournament was super meaningful or whatever. But you need to understand what the like hierarchy, I guess, and noticing the patterns or whatever, and when to differentiate like when it's noise or whatever. I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I think it's something that gets lost sometimes where it's like leagues can be a great way to find a cool deck or something to play like your local stuff or whatever, but that shouldn't maybe be like the best way to figure out how you're going to test for like the pro tour or like an SCG or like, you know what I mean? Like a bigger thing that like with the stakes for you.
Yeah. Well, you can test, right? You can, cause you can still learn like the interactions and stuff, mm-hmm. and you'll play against Four Color and Murktide and leagues and stuff. And you can take conclusions from that, but like, if your record in leagues is just nuts. Like don't listen to it. And take like the gameplay conclusions like with some amount of salt, because like people are probably throwing against you. They're probably sideboarding bad. They're probably playing bad. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've like 2-3 to league and then like at least been cash a tournament or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, that was the deck. Yeah. I just needed to play it a little bit.
Yeah, and even in the same way that 5-0ing a league is noise, 2-3ing a league is also noise, because I think 4-color is actually like really bad against the Crawford's deck or whatever. That I brought up as like a meme earlier. Like it's a cool meme deck. It's fine. It's fun. It's whatever. But like if you play against like mono black Coffers or whatever with 4-color, you get dunked twice or whatever. That's noise, because if people show up to that, and like they're probably not going to do very well in a tournament, because they're going to have to play against a bunch of other top decks that are, it's not pretty good against, because they're playing Cabal Coffers and Urborg and like all of these non-swamps that I still don't really fully understand why we're doing that. But not here nor there, I guess.
No, yeah. One thing I want to talk about, because you've done testing for things like the mocks. You've done testing with like the Team CFB for the Pro Tour and stuff like that. Yeah. How has testing been with those sort of groups, and like what were you able to kind of learn and glean from that, and like how has that affected you going forward and like changed your process?
So for the set champs, I tested with CFB, and for the mocks, I tested with Stefan Schutz and then some various people. I actually still have the server up, so I can tell you who was in our server. It was Ellen Bogan and Baker Noonan, Dom Harvey, Jarvis Yu, Stefan, Ryan Oligora, Alan Wu, and Tangrams, David Inglis. And they're just like, and so those guys, and then CFB, just like the normal CFB guys that you think of. I learned that I suck. I'm so bad. It's actually insane how much better. Basically, everybody I just listed, and then everybody on CFB is like so much. It's actually insane. And like also like testing for a Pro Tour is like, it's going to end up being like completely different because you're trying to understand the incentives of the people there, and every single person at the set champs for New Capenna was trying their hardest, especially because if you had a 9-6 record, you qualified for a paper Pro Tour, which almost everybody wanted. I'm sure you could find like a dozen people out of the 250 or however, I don't know, people there or whatever, who like didn't try or whatever because maybe they had work commitments or whatever. But like basically everybody was trying their hardest, and I ended up not doing well in the set champs. I don't know. My play was not great. I made one play that really bugs me, and I don't remember the exact board, but basically I used a Corpse Appraiser to dig for a removal spell. I needed a removal spell to like not die. And I used a Corpse Appraiser instead of Expected Duration, and I found my one Soul Transfer, which is the only 3-mana removal spell in my deck. Most of them were 2, and then I cast the Soul Transfer with 1 floating, and then they had their 1 Make Disappear, which was which kind of also paid 2, or maybe they had 2 Make Disappears. I don't know. But then they had a Make Disappear that I could have played around if I had used Iteration instead. And so that has been in my brain for the last 6 months or 4 months or 5 months or whatever. But it's fine. Mistakes happen. Magic's really hard. And like the Corpse Appraiser didn't matter. Like the extra 3/3, I was going to win next turn no matter what because my board presence was like overwhelming. But like they were going to kill me in the air with a Legion Angel, and like, oh my god, thinking about it is just so frustrating. But I ended up doing poorly in the tournament, but it's fine because testing. I mean, everybody on the team was awesome, and I played the same decks as Sigrist, and Sigrist top 4 or 6 or whatever. I don't know. The Brechts are weird, so it's kind of hard to say. But you did really well, and you got the Worlds invite and stuff. And I don't know, just testing with guys like that are all. Those guys are really good, I guess. And then like the process for testing, like focus testing in a tournament like that is going to end up being a lot different because than you would for like an RCQ, or probably even it's probably going to be kind of similar for Atlanta because people are like everybody's going to be trying in Atlanta pretty much because like you had to qualify to get there, I think. But you're still going to see people like bias away from the best deck or whatever, and you're still going to see like some like a wider range of skills than you will at the Pro Tour. I guess you're going to see people like not playing particularly well here or there or whatever, which is fine. Obviously, it's just trying to like factor that into your decision making process. I hope I'm not talking too much.
No, you're good. You're good. Keep going. I would stop you if you were talking too much.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, like
you gotta stop now. I'm just joking. Keep going.
Yeah, and the Mox was different. The Mox was way different than any other tournament, and that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying like it's the Mox. If you're not familiar, it's 8 people. And then there's the one that it's now going to be different format. It's not going to be different Magic formats. It's the same format though, we just replace formats. But it's 2 formats. It was Modern, and it was Vintage Q. And the winner, the person who 3-0s Modern, plays against the person who 3-0s Vintage Q. And then the winner of that wins the Mox, and that person wins $20,000, and the person who gets second gets $15,000. And then it's $7,500 7,500, 7,500, and then 5,000 to fill it out from 5th through 8th. So the big money's at the top, right? And then also, I was like familiar with most of the players in the mocks. Like I knew Andre and Zach and stuff. And I was just basically like, when it's so small, when there's just 8 people or whatever, and this is probably something that you can factor in if you're playing like a 12-player local RCQ or whatever, and it's like most people who are like at your store or something, and you know that they're not going to be on this level or whatever, and they're just going to play like Tron guy's going to play Tron or whatever, then you can like factor this in, right? If you really want to sweat for that tournament, I guess. I try to figure out exactly what they would play, and it's a little harder because like nobody was just 100% to play one thing, but we ended up putting 4 colors in the most popular deck, and it ended up being the most popular deck. And so me and Stefan, we both brought Valakut Scapeshifts deck, which was really good against 4 color, and then all the 4 color players did pretty poorly, I think. And then I ended up winning, which is so crazy. Yeah, I don't know. Valakut was like I wouldn't play Valakut in a normal tournament because basically like my thought was like, or our thought was like, Murktide is a really, really good deck, and it's really popular in a lot of tournaments because it's good against plenty of stuff, but it's not very good against 4 color. And at the time, the like now the most popular build is like Traverse, but before it was like Cavern of Souls, Endurance, Risen Reef, etc. And like the Cavern of Souls build would really, really dunk on Murktide in my practice. And so we sort of figured that nobody would bring Murktide because we sort of expect this to happen. You don't want to be bad against this. We were wrong about Cascade though. Like I thought Cascade was being pretty popular. And what I liked about Valakut is that you could use Wish, which is a 3-mana sorcery to play a card from your sideboard this turn. You can get Scapeshift with it on 7 lands, which is the amount of lands you can kill with Scapeshift for 8 or deal 18 with Scapeshift. And then you can also use it to get Chalice for X0 that turn. And so like I like that it was okay against Living End and Rhinos or maybe some Psychopath Brock Glimpse combo or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I ended up just trying to figure out exactly what people are going to play, but you can't do that for Atlanta. I can't tell you. You know what I mean? Nobody knows. Like, and I'll setting aside the fact, like for the Nerd Rage, like it's hard to say like what's going to be most popular. Like probably some amount of 4 color Murktide and stuff, but it's just so like nebulous and stuff. And like I understand all the incentive structures in place. And Atlanta's going to be especially weird because it's like there's like going to be a new set coming out like literally that day, which is like insane. Not really sure how I'm going to find cards, I guess. So I hope the set is very good. I think most of us are hoping the set is very good, to be honest. But you know.
Awesome. Well, I have one last thing I want to ask you before we get to some Patreon questions, unless Abe has a question for you. Yeah. And this is that one thing I noticed about you, and it's not always true, but I think often when I think about you, if I had to describe you to someone, I would say you like to master one deck. Like I feel like you played E-Tron a bunch, you did the Green Light Reclaimer, you've done Hammer a bunch, and you obviously have a wider range than that and switch decks up. You know, you even just mentioned you're probably playing 4 color at the next NRG. Is there a reason you do that? Do you like really like learning the intricacies of one deck, or is it just kind of like you find something and you really vibe with it and you really want to like master that thing?
No, I have no idea. I just do it sometimes.
Sure.
Like I don't know. I like Hammer, and so I'll play Hammer, and like I'll do okay with it. And like, you know, I mean, Magic's a game, right? Like you don't have to be like, you don't always have to be like optimizing for like what the very best choice is or whatever. Like, I mean, I'm playing a tournament that I want to win this weekend, which is going to be an NRG in Minneapolis. So I'm just going to play stock 4 color pretty much. In most tournaments, I'm going to win like 2 or 3% less if I'm playing Hammer or whatever, maybe. If that, like that even seems kind of high to me, to be honest. And like, and if you're still winning an acceptable amount and like you just like your deck or whatever, and like, I don't know, like I don't really like 4 color that much. I mean, I like it fine. I'm a little worried about drawing. I'm kind of bad at paper. So like I might get a draw or 2. I'm hoping to avoid that. I'll be doing my best to not to get those, but that's just kind of how I operate sometimes. Like I didn't want to play the Uro decks really. I just didn't really like them, I guess. So I just play Green White Reclaimer. Obviously, if you're like a Magic playing robot or whatever, and it's like, yeah, my only goal is to put my win percentage at the highest number possible at every possible opportunity, then like, yeah, you probably should play Uro or whatever. But like, it's a game, man. Like, I don't know. Play the game, have fun.
Yeah, that's
and you know that is fun for some people. I'm not saying that that's a bad way to approach things. So there's no bad way to really approach things. But,
yeah.
You know.
Except for Commander. But let's move on to our Patreon questions, because we do have a couple of questions from our patrons, so I want to throw them in here. I don't want to hold you up all night. The first one I have is from Mikey. What is the worst card you've ever registered in a tournament?
Oh, jeez.
And you can't say Matter Reshaper, because I know you want to say that for the meme, but...
No, it's not. It's not that bad. I've definitely played worse cards than that.
It's like exactly the same tier as Electrolyze. So.
Yeah. I mean, this one costs 2, though. I don't know. Well, not really. I mean, there's an HT, I guess. The literal worst card? I mean, there are some really embarrassing ones. I min cashed a GP with Tome Scour Dredge. Does that count? I had Tome Scour. Tome Scour kind of sucks. I don't know.
Tome Scour does kind of suck.
Yeah, it was a team GP, and I played Dredge after they banned Faithless Looting. I was like, just add some blue lands and Tome Scour. It's probably fine, right?
Yeah.
Like, probably totally fine. But it's not fine.
Yeah, your first game you played Tome Scour hits perfect. You're like, we should have been doing this the whole time. What were we doing for looting?
Great. Like, I just put Dark Beat with 2 Prize Dogs in play. This is awesome. But Faithless Looting could never. But
I love that.
I think since I've known you, if I had to nominate one, the Knight of Infamy.
Oh my God, that's it. Yeah.
The pro white knight in the Cigar Aid Hammer deck.
Oh, I forgot to do that. Yeah,
cleaning up the PTQ with, and you're like, wait.
I didn't even know. It didn't even come up during the tournament. So people who don't know, I was playing Hammer in a Moto PTQ, and I like lost in top 8 or whatever. Top 4? I don't know. Top 8 or top 4 or whatever. Didn't win. Came close-ish. And I posted the deck that was really giving me problems at the time was Blue Eye Control. And so I did a little gatherer search, and we found Knight of Infamy, which is 1 in a black for a 2/1 with first strike, I think, and Exalted and protection from white. And I was like, this is great. They can't Solitude it, and they can't Prismatic Ending it. This is perfect. And like 1, it can just kill them by just attacking over and over because they can't kill it. It's outside of Verdict, and you can make them Verdict 1 thing, and then you untap and do something because they tap low. Then I posted my list, and then somebody was like, hey, did you know that your Hammer with Cigar Aid can't target this card? And I was like, no way. And I was like, that is bad. Wow. Okay, so then I played the one from Dominaria that attacked from white instead. It was pretty much the same thing. But, yeah. Oh, it doesn't have first strike, because I think it trades with Kira, I think. That might not be true. Maybe I was thinking, maybe Yorion was bad against, because there's something where protection was more important than expert. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah. I think it has first strike, but yeah, I think it was the Yorion thing.
I feel like it does, but it might not. I don't know.
That story is so funny because I don't know, because we were all in a testing Discord for the Invitational, or like sharing ideas. I remember you two talking about that card, and I was like, "Damn, that's smart," or whatever. And there was like a lot of people who, like Kane, who's guest on the show, was there. There's a lot of smart people in that Discord, and no one caught the Cigar Aid thing. And I saw you top 8, and I was like, "Damn!" I was like, "You leaked the tech, but at least you have a good finish. Hopefully, you win." And then someone replies with that, and I'm like, huh.
I was like, wow, that was so dumb. Like, that was so dumb.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. Yeah, and it didn't even come up during the tournament. I didn't have I didn't even learn the hard way. Oh my God. If I had won my quarterfinals match, because I remember now, it was the top 8. I lost to Burn in the top 8. I would have been paired versus my friend Nam Dang, who's a great player. Nam squats on Magic Online. He was playing Blue Eye Control. He ended up winning this tournament. Like, I can picture it now where I have the Knight of Infamy in play. I have a Cigar Aid. I play a Hammer, and then there's just a long pause on his screen while I'm like struggling. That did not actually happen, but it would have been really funny if I lost to him in a PC top 8 because
that would have been really funny.
Because I had done that. That would be really funny. But unfortunately, I just got. I remember I got steamrolled by Burn in the quarters. Yeah, I lost in like 5 minutes. So it goes.
Damn. Yeah, that's wild. So it's funny you mentioned NAMS, because our next question from Adam. Adam says, after playing so much Modo and being so ingrained with the scene, what are some of the names that you look for results that you're kind of like, oh, I feel like this person normally knows what's up?
Yeah, I mean, Nam's a great example. I mean, Nam's really good.
That's Namor Squats on Modo, right?
Yeah, it's Namor Squats. He definitely does a little like copy paste action, which is obviously nothing wrong, no shame or whatever. But it's not like, oh wow, I know that Nam like definitely broke it for this standard challenge or whatever. It's like, I probably copy pasted that list or whatever. But that's neither here nor there. But like, I don't know, just like some good names. Oh, Nate Stoyer. Nate Stoyer. His name is just Nathan Stoyer on Magic Online. And then McWinsauce is really good, and Binu is really good, and Stainerson is really good. I'm 100% missing people. These are
for sure. Kind of. Yeah, we also sprung this question on you. We didn't tell you this one ahead of time, which just in hindsight, maybe I should have told you this one ahead of time.
Yeah,
but,
this one maybe it would have been good for.
But now when you leave out a friend, they're just like, oh, Will just didn't think of me. Obviously,
no shade there. I'm just trying to think. Oh, Sam Rolfe, Phil Hellmuth on Magic Online. He's insane. He's super, super good. I don't know. I mean, there's definitely more people. It's just kind of like Juju Bean. Julian is also, he's really good. He wins a lot. And he usually has good, well thought out deck lists and stuff. like those guys are definitely some of the people who I'm like, wow, these guys are like, I definitely want to pay attention to like what, like I would definitely look at like a top 32 list of theirs over like a winning list of a name I've never seen before or whatever personally. But like Winged Hussar, also a good friend of mine. He's really good. Ryan Welligor, awesome player. And usually thinks he's busy being a doctor and saving lives right now. So like, maybe,
Cringe.
literally saved a guy's life. like recently.
That's
Legend. But yeah. Like,
well, thank you so much, Will, for coming on the show. Do you want to shout out anything? I know sometimes you stream on Twitch. I know you like to dunk on Commander players on Twitter. What do we got?
Okay, I want to be clear that I do not hate Commander players. I do hate the people on Twitter who like use Commander Twitter or whatever as like a vessel through which to be as mean and nasty under like a guise of welcoming and acceptance. I do hate those people, but generally Commander is cool. It's just fun. There's nothing wrong with Commander. I play Commander sometimes. Not very often.
Let's all play Commander in Atlanta as like
I have a deck. I have a pre-con vampire deck.
I have the coin flip deck. We're down to game. Yeah.
Buy the newest pre-con.
Yeah, nice.
Let's go.
I do think CEDH is stupid. I do think that one. But I will argue this with any CEDH player. Not really, because I don't really care about their opinions. But yeah, thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, thank you guys for having me. It was fun.
Awesome. It's great to have Will on. He was such a great guest. I love talking to Will. Such a great player, and it's really interesting to always sort of hear his thoughts. And like Abe so accurately pointed out, he has such a different and humble way of looking at things, despite having a lot of the results and stuff that I think would lead a lot of people not to sort of be that way. So it's really great to have Will on the show.
And a fellow Hammer believer. Love to have another Hammer believer on the show.
It's true. We love some Hammer truths, and we didn't even have that much Hammer talk. I was expecting we have to hammer some of that out. But we didn't have to. Get it?
I do get it. I'm not laughing.
Because it's a hammer. Anyways, if you want to get your question asked on the show, you can go to patreon.com/ccmtg to support the show. Last week we did a whole episode on mailbag questions from the patrons. This week you were able to ask Will a question, and you get access to the Discord with everyone in there. It's really been growing and popping. There's so many different channels and so many different things going on, from all the main formats to like a serious thinking about a channel where like sometimes questions get posed. We actually had a tweet from Will up there last weekend, which is very funny. We didn't get to bring that up on the show, but a lot of stuff like that, to even an always improving part of the Discord. So if you want to support the show will always be free. But you can go to patreon.com/ccmg to support the show. Patrons got to ask Will a question this week, so there's not one there. If you also want to get your question read on the show, one of the ways you can do that is go to youtube.com/ccmtg. You'll find all the episodes there, along with our sponsor, Game Grid Lee Highs. All their 2K and higher events, they are streamed and they're uploaded there as well. So there's some awesome gameplay that you can check out from some local Utah guys. You won't get to see Spencer play because he's always commentating them, but you do have Spencer on all of those, and Abe and I are going to join for some of those down the road. We're still trying to figure that all out exactly, and how to make it work technically great for the stream, because we want to put the best foot forward. But that's the way to do that. We didn't have any YouTube comments on last week's episode before this one. It was also a little late. It's all good. It happens. We've been super busy, like we talked about earlier in the show. But I did run into a listener at the Card Monster thing, Abe, and they asked a question. And so I'm going to hit you with the question they asked me, since I've already answered it for them, and maybe I'll give a quick synopsis on the show here. But the question kind of was, how do you know that you're not just coping when it comes to a deck?
How do I know that I'm not just telling myself my deck is good?
Yeah. Because basically the thing they said is that they basically said I kind of agree that it's really hard to know from results. Kind of like what Will said earlier in the show, right? It's really hard, leagues, blah, blah, noise, all that sort of thing. And really what matters more than the result and the numbers, not 18-2, that doesn't matter. What matters way more is kind of how the game's played out, how you did that. And they've recognized that from the show, and they've heard us say it, but they sometimes are like, but how do I know I'm doing that right? And how am I not just being oh yeah, I'm coming to these conclusions because I'm winning, and not being super objective about them.
I don't know. I haven't really had a huge issue with this recently, because I've tried to be a lot more honest with myself about my decks, because I know for many years that I tend to get attached and then not update my priors, so I know it's a problem of mine. I know it's like a crutch. So, if I had something more serious to play with Hammer and I was taking things really serious, or in Modern, I chose Hammer, I have to be really honest with myself that I think that Hammer is the best choice available to me, or that I'm allowing myself to play it even though it's not. If I think it's not. But I think if you're someone who has trouble with this, what's really helped me is adopting a mindset that I need to be able to defend all of the choices that I make in a tournament to myself. I think that it's a really good practice just in general to be able to debrief with yourself or debrief with a friend and talk through all the decisions you made, especially the close ones where you're like, should I have made this play or that play? Should I have boarded this in or not? Should I have mulliganed or kept this hand? In the same way, you should give that much thought to your deck choice. And if you feel like when you lay out all the information in front of you, you are trying to convince yourself that that's the case and not actually believing yourself that's the case, especially because it works for me because I'm a very long-winded person when it comes to what I think about Magic. So I have to spend a lot of time organizing all of my thoughts and then being like, yeah, no, I know that this is something I don't actually believe is true. I can find the flaw in what I'm thinking if I think that I'm holding onto a deck too much, and then try to identify what the next step is. And so it might help you to do the same thing, like a very long pros, cons, logical list of this is why I should play this deck. This is why I'm doing it. This is why I'm justifying my decision. And if it still doesn't feel right or doesn't add up, maybe you should just explore something else. I think that's how I know. And I think that that's something that if you're someone who struggles with that and feels like they might get too attached, can help you. And definitely feel free to share that with someone who you trust and who you work with or play with or talk Magic with, because their perspective might run counter to yours. And you might, even if you wind up disagreeing with what you have disagreeing about what you're saying, I think that you'll be able to have, a really productive conversation that either lets you learn what their perspective is and is coming from so you can make a better decision down the line, or kind of exposes a flaw that you might not even notice in your own logic that will allow you to make a better decision down the line. So it's all upside.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I said a lot of that similar stuff and endorse it. And one thing that I said is that kind of in this line is you should try attacking your deck it's not good. Try and figure out what is weak about it and sort of pressure those sort of thoughts, especially if you don't have someone that will push back against you. And then also I mentioned taking it to friends that are maybe not, because they mentioned it being copium, but maybe not in the same Kool-Aid, right? Where it's if I go and talk to let's say someone like Kane about 4-color, who we had on the show before. Kane loves 4-color. I love 4-color. We might echo chamber each other a little bit, right? Whereas if I come to Abe about it, who maybe respects 4-color your deck, but isn't in the weeds about it as much, it has a completely different perspective, and then very different than Spencer, who respects 4-color as a deck, but thinks that there are much better decks to play or other things, like that. So there's, and then that list goes on and on and on. I have friends like Jesse, who won the NRG a couple weeks ago, who used to be a 4-color truther and is now lower on the deck, but still pretty high on it. So knowing where your people are and kind of presenting information to them and talking to them, I think is super helpful. And sometimes I approach conversations with these people from the perspective that isn't even the one I honestly believe, but I want to hear how they would think through the problem and see if we're coming to the same conclusion, right? Because if I come to Abe and I'm like, yeah, I just really feel like Leyline Binding is just too clunky and just doesn't actually answer enough, and it's just kind of awkward that I can get answered on the board, blah, blah, blah. And if Abe can come to similar conclusions about that maybe, or have similar thoughts that I have already when I'm pushing back against him, then we might actually be onto something. Or he might also expose something in what I'm saying that he's yeah, totally true. Also, people are just going to bring in this card for you anyways that lines up so well against it. So why expose yourself, right? And so doing that sort of thing can be really helpful, I found. So hopefully that was helpful to you, and it was so great to meet you this weekend. Abe, listeners got all this help and they probably had a great time to listen to everything, but they should also check out the rest of the network. We have drafting archetypes with Sam Black, and Sam is all in the Dominaria United Limited, so you want to make sure to definitely check that out on the network. And you want to check out Common Knowledge. Abe, there was a popper ban yesterday. A bunch of initiative cards left the format. I'm sure they're going to be talking all about that this week, so make sure to go check out Common Knowledge on the Constructed Criticism Network. Abe, if someone wants to find you, where can they go?
Find me at twitter.com/morenothings. You can always DM me for coaching queries. I do still have some time slots available for people. I really just want to help people improve, especially with Hammer Time, but also with a wide variety of Pioneer decks. I'm very comfortable with just about every deck in Pioneer that you could think of. So
primer/guide, I guess you would call it, for Pioneer. So if you've been interested in that deck, maybe the combo is a little confusing. Maybe you kind of talked yourself off it. You might want to check out that article. It should be really cool. You can also DM me about coaching on Twitter, which is at Mason E. Clark. And you can also reach out to me via email about that if that's something you prefer. Maybe you're not on Twitter with masoneclark@gmail.com. That's my email. Feel free to send me about that, and we can talk about that. And make sure to check out next week's episode of Constructed Criticism.